Let's talk about plastic. It is everywhere in our homes, our cars. It's literally woven into our clothes. But this stuff, as useful as it is, has created a truly global crisis. And this week, a huge international effort at the UN to finally solve it just fell apart. So we're going to break down what happened and why this fight over plastic is about so much more than just the trash we see.
You know, it always starts with something small, right? A single object. For you, maybe it's a water bottle from a road trip or a toy you had as a kid. But here's the thing. That little piece of plastic is, for all intents and purposes, permanent. It's going to outlive you, me, our grandkids. It's a wild thought that pretty much every piece of plastic ever made is still on this planet in some form.
And that's exactly why this is such a big deal. With a problem that massive, you'd think the world could come together. And they tried. They gathered to write a legally binding global treaty to get a handle on it. But last Friday, after all that work, the whole thing just collapsed. No deal. So the big question is, why?
All right, so how did we get to this point? To really get it, you have to understand just how big the goal was here. This wasn't just another environmental meeting. The plan was to create a historic, legally binding agreement to tackle plastic across its entire life, from the moment it's created to the moment we throw it away.
And this timeline really puts the problem into perspective. Plastic production has been growing at an insane rate, about 9% every single year since 1950. It's just exponential. So in 2022, the UN finally steps in, says, okay, we need a global plan with teeth. But as we know now, that plan hit a serious wall.
So what was this wall? What stopped the whole world in its tracks? Well, it wasn't some minor detail or a little political squabble. The entire treaty fell apart because of a deep, fundamental disagreement over one single, crucial idea. This right here, these three words are what broke the treaty: full life cycle. It sounds a little technical, but the idea is actually super simple. Do you solve the plastic problem by cleaning up the mess at the end of the pipe, or do you go all the way back to the beginning and turn off the tap? That one question became the central battleground.
So the debate basically split the world into two camps. On one side, you had a whole bunch of countries saying, look, we have to address the entire life of plastic. That means limiting how much new plastic we make in the first place. But then on the other side, a really powerful group insisted the treaty should only focus on the downstream problem. Just managing the trash after it's already out there.
So you might be thinking, why does this distinction matter so much? Isn't focusing on recycling good enough? Well, it turns out the plastic pollution we can actually see is only half the story. There's another, much bigger problem, and it's one that's totally invisible.
First, let's just remember the scale here. A 9% average growth rate every single year for over 70 years. It's almost impossible to comprehend how much of this stuff we are making.
And our main solution, recycling? Well, it's not even close to keeping up. Less than 10% of all the plastic ever made has actually been recycled. The math is just brutal. We're making it way, way faster than we can ever hope to manage it.
And this is the real pivot point. The heart of the issue isn't just the waste, it's the creation. The biggest environmental hit happens long before that plastic bottle ever even gets to you.
This chart just says it all. Look at those big blue bars. That's the greenhouse gas emissions from producing plastic. Now look at that tiny little pink sliver at the very top. That's the emissions from getting rid of it. It's not even a fair fight. The real climate damage is in the manufacturing, and those emissions are on track to more than double by 2060.
So, that brings up a huge question, right? If production is so clearly the climate problem, why would any country possibly fight against limiting it? Well, the answer has everything to do with what plastic is actually made of. The sources identify a very clear group of opponents. Petroleum-producing nations like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait basically argued that putting a cap on production was outside the scope of the treaty. And the US also reportedly worked to slow things down and get rid of that critical phrase, full life cycle. And here is the why. This statistic is it's mind-blowing. Plastic isn't just made using fossil fuels, it's literally made from fossil fuels. 12% of global oil demand and over 8% of natural gas demand goes directly into making plastic. It is a massive and growing market for their main exports.
And this creates a really dangerous situation that economists have a name for: carbon lock-in. See, as the world moves to electric cars and renewable energy, the demand for oil and gas for fuel is going to drop. But plastic? That provides a lifeline. It's a guaranteed future customer. So the fight to keep making more plastic isn't just about plastic anymore. It's the new battleground for the future of the fossil fuel industry. So now that we see the whole picture, we've got the waste problem, the huge climate problem, and these powerful economic forces all tangled up, where on earth do we go from here? Well, the first step is just admitting what the data is screaming at us. Focusing only on recycling bins and beach cleanups, it's like trying to mop up a massive flood while the faucet is still gushing full blast. It's a good gesture, but it completely misses the much bigger climate problem.
The real path forward, according to experts, involves two huge shifts, both at the source. First, we need to innovate our way out of this, find new ways to make plastics that don't need oil and gas. And second, we need to regulate. We have to get smarter about the sheer volume of plastic we produce, which includes things like the proposed bans on single-use plastics that we just don't need.
And here is a little bit of a hopeful note to end on. The treaty isn't actually dead. It's just on hold. Officials are already saying they plan to get the talks going again. So, yeah, the first attempt failed, but the global push to find a real solution is not going away.
Which kind of leaves us with this one final thought. We know plastic production and all its emissions are on track to nearly double. And we know that recycling on its own can't possibly keep up. So given all that, is controlling plastic at its source, turning off the tap, really a choice anymore? Or is it simply the only path that the math allows?